Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Marks. I am a Director of Business Development for Tracker Products. And today we are live streaming from the Forest Park Police Department in pretty cold, we just had some snow, Cincinnati, Ohio. We do these webinars every month, and we are extremely excited today that my guests are allowing us a unrestricted or semi-restricted access viewpoint into their property and evidence room. And so we want to dive right into it really quick, but first, just some of the general things we like to discuss. First off, the Facebook community forum for evidence managers on Facebook. We've got links to all of that on the screen, as you can see. Go ahead and join that. We're just shy of, I think, 700 members of that group. And it's evidence managers, evidence custodians from across the country gathered to talk about evidence, share best practices, ask for advice. And it's this great community that everyone should be joining so that you can not only get great content, but interact with your actual peer groups. We also offer online evidence management training through our partnership with the Evidence Management Institute. So definitely check them out. And as I said, we're not going to waste any more time. So today I have with me Officer Crowley and Lieutenant Adam Pape with the Forest Park Police Department. And today we are going to really dive in because they have had an interesting 2 years of activity at their property and evidence room. You have, one, revamped and built a new evidence room, and two, you have come into an evidence management software standalone system. So those two things we're gonna definitely get more into today. Again, thank you so much for being with us. Let's just start off with high-level introduction. So Tracker Products, as you know, we're an evidence management software company, but what we are really trying to do is change the culture of evidence management. Right now, we are teaming up with partners like the Evidence Management Institute to offer a total evidence management solution to all of our clients, because we don't just care that you have great software, but we also want to make sure that you're following the best industry practices, and ultimately that the industry on whole is elevated to the next level. And one of the ways we do that is by sharing thoughts and ideas, which is why webinars like the one we have today are so valuable and why we get such high interest from people, because they want to see how other agencies manage their evidence. So could you really briefly introduce yourselves? Let me know a little bit about what your current positions are at Forest Park, and how long have you been working here for the agency?
Yeah, my name's Adam Pape. I'm a lieutenant here in Forest Park. Been here, this is my 23rd year. I'm the operations commander, so I oversee both the road patrol and the CID, Criminal Investigations Division. And as part of that, I also oversee the property room.
Okay, excellent.
Bill Crowley. I started at this agency in 2007. Total, I'm a little over 23 years of service. I'm assigned to the road patrol, but I am one of the 3 property officers here. My background's all in crime scene and evidence.
Excellent. So both of you have a lot of tenure and experience in law enforcement. Now, when it comes to property and evidence, what drew you to this role? And again, what was it like when you first came into the evidence unit?
Just so we're clear, nothing drew me to this role. I for 21 years, I wanted nothing to do with the property room. Then I got promoted to lieutenant, and the captain said, "Congratulations, you're in charge of the property room." And the chief, who got promoted at the time, said, "We want to redo things." So he put me in charge of it, and I grabbed Phil, and we ran with it from there.
Okay. So when you say you wanted to change things, what specifically were you wanting to change? What kind of kick-started this activity if we rewind about 2 years ago?
Well, our property room was overcrowded. It was kind of discombobulated, really no flow to it whatsoever. And one of the main issues was we didn't get rid of property. And another main issue was we couldn't find property. So Not all the time, but there were times where you'd go to the property office and say, I need this property for court. And then it was a day and a half long search in the property room before you can actually find that piece of property, because it was put in the wrong place, or somehow it was lost in the property room.
So was there a particular instance, a negative of some kind, that really kickstarted from the executive level saying, hey, this is something we need to address? And if so, what was that?
Well, when our chief became the chief a couple years ago, he wanted to become a CLIA accredited department, which we weren't at the time. And he had also learned from a chief's meeting or a chief's training, whatever chiefs do, that basically the biggest liability he has being in charge of the police department is the property and evidence room. And he knew, A, we would not pass CLIA accreditation with our current setup, and B, he did not want to be indicted. So that's when he put us in charge of changing things around.
So again, a lot of the liability falls in the property room. I think everyone on this webinar would agree. It is one of the most important functions of a PD. I would even argue as far as to say that the evidence is a great snapshot in how the overall operation is ran.
Yes.
So if you've got a really clean cut evidence room operation, that's reflective of your division, of your department. And luckily you had, it sounds like, the managerial support system in place, which unfortunately isn't the case for everybody. But did you get any pushback when you started to make the recommendations of, I think we need to build a new facility and update it, as well as get evidence management software?
The only pushback we had was monetarily, because everything comes down to money, and we are not flush with it here in Forest Park. So, we came up with some workarounds where, what we did in this room, as far as the demolition, we did that ourselves. We did that in conjunction with our public works guys. So we gutted it ourselves. And then we got a company, Patterson Pape, to come in and do the shelving for us. That was the main expense. But by the time we showed what we were spending and what it would give us, the argument was made that the money is worth it. And at the end of the day, they agreed.
And you communicated that through liability for your executive staff, as well as, simply put, you couldn't find things in the room the old way.
Right.
And if, some missing evidence happened to occur, you would be in a pretty bad storm.
Yeah.
Now, you also, unfortunately, had another incident happen that sort of brought to the forefront the fact that you need to rely on software, but you also have to have contingencies in place. So you unfortunately were hit with a cyber attack a little while ago in 2018. Can you tell us a little bit about what systems that impacted? Was the evidence room impacted by that cyber attack? And how did you use that as kind of a lesson learned opportunity to make your decisions for moving forward?
Yeah, back in 2018, our records management system, we used PAMET, along with 22 other agencies here in Hamilton County, had a huge data loss. Whether or not it was a cyber attack, which we suspect it was, or whatever other reason, they went offline. And when they went offline, all of our data for us, 2014 until that point, was gone. And then it took well over a year before they could restore that data. And even still, there's a chunk of time where we will never get it back. So data's lost, which is huge for a police department, not having your records management system and then not being able to go back and find reports, which entailed the evidence that was brought in, the property that was brought in. So it was a huge thing when that happened for every agency here in Hamilton County.
And I can hear the people online cringing, because I can only imagine that is the biggest nightmare, or one of the top nightmares that you would experience as that PD moving forward.
Yes.
So when that occurred, did that bring into play some of your inkling to have a separate evidence management system outside of the RMS?
Yeah, we made the decision once we found the system that we liked to not go with the typical RMS module for property, which our current RMS system has, but it's not as in-depth. It doesn't have, we like it separate. We like our RMS system with their backups and our property with its multiple backups on 2 separate systems. We just, after this loss, we felt more comfortable doing that.
Absolutely. And so I think we are going to jump into some before-after photos of your intake room and the way your property room looked before. Now, Max online, I should have mentioned this earlier, we do have a question window for anybody online on the right hand of your screen. If you go ahead and type in any questions, we would love for this to be as interactive as possible. So Max will be monitoring those questions online, and we're going to take some time to pause and check in with Max to see if there have been any questions asked from our audience. Obviously, we'll be able to share information from the evidence community forum if anybody thinks of a question after the fact, but we do want to make sure that people are aware you can ask questions using that question box. So let's jump right in, and I believe our first picture is going to be a before and after of your intake. So on the left-hand side, this was your intake and processing area. Can you tell me a little bit about the changes that were made? It does look like you were a little bit cramped in terms of space.
Sure, and as you can see, we gutted that area. We got rid of it, put in a nice steel table, just made it more organized with our packaging. We actually changed our packaging as well to an envelope system that works beautifully for us. And then Phil put together what you see on the wall as far as how to package certain things.
Which is also a full book in there that the patrolman can pull up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do have the standardized policy procedure within the room,
yeah,
and some of your most common items, I assume,
yeah,
easy so the officers can have it as a reference. I certainly can see from here, definitely a cleaner setup,
yeah,
from the get-go. So I believe, let's go down another page. This is the old room. Again, you have a sink station area. It does clearly look like some items are spilling over, as you'd mentioned, with some space capacity issue. So again, a little bit lackluster in terms of what you are wanting. So let's jump over to today and see your processing room. So again, you're utilizing evidence management software, and you've got an intake station, yes, for officers to be able to go ahead, log into the system, enter their evidence, print out their barcode label, and not only package, but put the evidence together. And so it's nice that that's all organized right there in the room. Let's go to our next picture. And this is something you didn't have before either. You, prior to the upgrade, didn't have any pass-through shelving or temporary lockers that fed directly into the property.
Correct.
So what is this system here? And are there any specifics you can tell us about this?
Yeah, these are actually the officer. You're looking at the unit that's next to the steel table from the prior picture. The officer is going to package all this stuff, enter it, put a label on it, put his evidence tape on it. It's going to be in this software while he's putting this evidence together. He's going to mark one of the areas, one of the units that it's going to go into, which is temporary storage. He then puts it in there, locks the button, and it's secure until a property officer takes it out from the opposite side.
And from the evidence management software perspective, on your dashboard, your homepage that has all of your evidence listed, what's coming in and out, you have done a good job of customizing the system so that you have a whole section on temporary storage lockers. So you'll actually see in the morning when you come on to shift, hey, locker 1, 2, and 5 have items in there. Right. I know we have some intake processing that needs done.
Yes.
Okay. Now, another thing to notice about these locker systems that I love is on the right-hand side, it looks like you've got both cold storage as well as electronic storage. Can you tell me a little bit about your decision to include that specifically?
Yeah, the cold storage was basically because we only have 3 property room officers, and there's a chance that maybe one or all of us are off at the same time, especially over a weekend. So if we have something that needs to go in cold storage to be kept cold over that weekend, it can be locked in there, and it locks just the same as all the other units. So A, B, C, D there that you see all lock individually.
Okay.
The cell phone storage that came about more recently, where the changes with the cell phone data and how you can actually retrieve that. If you allow a cell phone to die, your chances of getting that data restored they drop dramatically. So we put in the cables here. There's 6 to 9 cables in there for both Android and Apple that officers can log it in, plug it in, and then lock it, and then we can get it from the other side and bring it to where it needs to go.
Excellent. So you're not running the risk of not being able to extract the data.
And they still enter the electronics the same way, and they just don't put it. They put the envelope in there with the label on it, and we secure it once we know what's going on with it. They're going to keep it charged in until we deal with it.
Fantastic. And then what we'll show later as we walk into the room is the back end of this system that's directly into the property room to our right. Real quick, Max, do we have any questions come through? This is a good time to take a pause.
No questions as of yet, David.
Fantastic. We are going to move right along. So now we're going to go back in time. These are the pictures of your old property and evidence room. Obviously, from first glance, you had a lot of property and evidence. What capacity level would you say you guys were at?
We were borderline maximum capacity. We were maximum capacity with the shelves. That's why you see things on the floors, things that are falling over. You couldn't walk between those 2 shelving units.
Right.
Yeah, it was, I hasten to say, it was a cluster.
Right. And obviously, you're looking at multiple things, not only getting things off the ground for ease of use, but also safety issues and also not compromising the evidence itself.
Right.
And this was an old pen and paper system. There was no computer.
So no tracking. So you just are finding a needle in a haystack, essentially. And you know roughly, well, bigger items, maybe we're off here. It looks to the left, you've got a big box and bin. But you really were starting from square one every time you were asked to retrieve something.
Right, because these blue bins were typically officer's bins, so there'd be a name of an officer attached to it. And it was supposed to have that property that officer brought in. However, that rarely worked out for us. And so it's difficult for an officer to say, hey, I need this item for court, and then you're pulling their bin, which could have years worth of items in it, and then to find, well, it's not in that bin. So then you're launching a search and recovery for some piece of item, piece of property that's lost.
Or old written logs, handwritten logs looking for this stuff.
Oh my goodness. And again, you have a lot. I mean, just looking at some of the shelving, there isn't a lot of space for one. And also, it looks like we've got some loose items not really packaged in any kind of envelopes or containers.
Right.
So was this a problem with just capacity because you guys had so much crime, or was this a buildup of years of not doing disposition?
Yeah, we didn't have any real disposition process, except once a year, our main property guy would send out an email saying, hey, come and look at your bins and let us know what you can get rid of. But then that was contingent upon the officer actually listening to that email,
right,
and doing that, which rarely occurred. So what you're seeing here is just years and years. When we redid the property room, we had stuff from the 80s that we were coming across from officers who have been retired for many, many years. And for minor cases, it wasn't a homicide. We were dealing with a criminal damaging case, and here's a piece of property from that from 1987.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of property that just wasn't going out.
And so to clarify, today, the process is much different. You have implemented disposition on a regular basis. Now, you're also utilizing software to help with that. So a little bit of the features of our software is automatic disposition, where automatic notifications go out based on your offense type. And it tells the officer that, hey, you have a case that you need to review on a regular. So it's not the once a year, it's whenever that case is up for review that the system automatically assigns based on your entry.
Yes.
But also, what else are you able to do? You're utilizing tags in a way, or the tasking feature to be able to say, hey, I need to understand about what cases maybe in the last 90 days have you entered, I want them reviewed. You can also send out your own tasks to notify.
Yeah, you can, it's fully customizable, but yes, you can. You can send out a task to any officer saying, we need an update on this case. But the automatic disposition is set up to where I can see, Phil can see all the tasks that are out there and whether or not an officer has answered those. And or when they do, it alerts us that, hey, the officer answered this task and they're telling me this can be disposed of. This needs to be held for court. And then we can proceed with that, just that piece of property individually going forward from there.
So
So
it can be reset so that it takes out another 80, 90 days.
Fantastic. So again, it's making sure that you don't have items on the screen that aren't being touched on a regular basis.
Correct.
And you went from a once a year to multiple touches, either a month, quarterly, but it's continual processing throughout the year. And so obviously when we get into the room, you're gonna see quite a stark difference from what we're displaying on the screen now. Now looking at these different areas, can you explain, you've got within the property room, you have a sink as well as a processing center for fingerprint.
And a bucket under the sink because the sink works so well.
Oh, lovely.
But
This was a big mess.
the processing center. So we did our fingerprints, our fuming, and that's part of that's in the property room. So that's where that was located. So
The old property room, that's
the old property.
Yes.
room. So that was one of our goals as well, is to gut the entire thing and relocate things where you don't have to go inside the property room to actually process the evidence.
And I think it's also pertinent that you guys did evaluate what was wrong with the old. Obviously, leaking water on a floor where I saw earlier you have packages sitting on the floor could be a really big catastrophic problem. So again, addressing all of that. Can you tell me a little bit about how long did the planning process take when you guys were getting ready, getting quotes for building the new property room, but specifically when you went with your grocery list or your Christmas wish list, it's December, your Christmas wish list for what you wanted built into the property?
It took a few months to actually get the quotes of the physical property room remodel, to get the different companies to give us the quotes and give us their layout and what they thought would work best and how much room we would save, and then get the approval from not only our administration, but the city administration to go ahead with it. It took a few months. And then, you know, truthfully, for the property software, once we located the software we wanted, that was a matter of days.
Yes.
When we said, look, this is what we want, this is what it will do for us, and this is how much it's going to cost, they were like, all right, do it. So,
excellent. I will say I was with you on that day when we came to do your first tour before the revamp was done. And you made a point to say, we definitely want software done at the same time as this activity. And I advocate that a lot because basically, in your own words, how much time do you think that saved by doing both processes simultaneously versus building your room and doing that and then implementing the software after?
it cut the time in half because we would have to have doubled our efforts moving everything out, which is what we did to do the reno. And then when we brought everything back in, we brought it in through the safe system. So now everything was labeled, everything was in the system, and we knew where absolutely everything was. If we didn't have the system at that time, we moved everything back in my opinion, I'd have to move it all back out and bring it all back in through the system again to do a full inventory.
Because again, we would have data imported your information, but you need to physically do that full 100% inventory to touch each item.
When we didn't have that information for you to data in.
Right.
We lost a bunch of it.
And so while you're going, you did a fairly sizable purge as you did this activity. You were able to move your items, touch everything. You knew exactly where it was going in the property room, logged by the system, but also those outliers, those items that maybe were lost track of based on the old process or the old system. You were then able to get your chief in the district's attorney office to basically say, yes, this is court ordered, okay, to dispose of.
Yeah.
So that cut down, what percentage of the property room do you think that cut down? Because right here, from what I see, I would guesstimate you were at about 95% capacity.
Probably, yeah.
And again, boxes on top of boxes, you know, obviously don't want that falling on people. And
I would say right now with our current setup, I would say 30%, if
We
that.
got plenty of room, and you guys will see that in a minute. But by us being able to keep track of what's coming in and going out and destroying stuff with a court order, we've done 4 of them since we've started this system, and we got plenty of room. So
Perfect.
it's worked out great.
Yeah, and again, can you tell me a little bit about your packaging changes? Because what we'll see when we go in, these bottles and kind of loose items on the shelf, that's no longer the case.
We did some research with some neighboring agencies. There is a couple of agencies in our local area that are using the same system, the SAFE system. The envelopes were kind of copied off of some different stuff that people were using, and it's working out great for us. We have basically 2 envelopes. Everything, if it fits, it goes in one of these 2 envelopes. We do still have some bigger packaging that obviously, bed quilts, big stuff's not going to fit in. So those are bagged separate. And once we get in the room, you'll see how well these envelopes work. And everything we've done was something we come up with and kind of had made ourselves. So.
Fantastic. All right, I think this might be the end of the slides. Again, packaging area. Now, the last slide is actually of the temporary storage location where you moved everything once you were in the process of renovating the facility. So again, this was another secure area where in the interim of the process facility being built, you had to move everything over.
Yes.
Okay, and so from this standpoint, we've had a good view of just how full you were. I think everybody online has either some idea of what that feels like to be on the front end of this big activity, starting over. But then also the exciting part, which is the transformation. And part of what we've tried to do in some of our newsletters and blog posts is we like to highlight success stories. And I think we're going to switch to mobile here in just a moment. So let's get this transitioned. But I think the transformation in one word can be summarized by 360. You've completely changed around your property room. So let us switch presenters as we are about to take you for the first live walkthrough of the evidence unit. So Max, real quick, do we have any questions before we get started?
Yeah, David, there was one. The question is, how big of an area is the evidence room?
So, and you'll see when we get in here, we've got a roller system in the middle. We've added, with the help of the agency that put this, the company that put this, helped us select the shelving, we added a lot of room. The room itself is still the same size, but it's with this setup, we've got plenty of room. Yeah, we didn't make the room bigger. We made the storage area, changed the setup, so to say. So it's still the same concrete walls. The storage system changed.
Fantastic.
Any
and I think
other questions while we're here, Max?
Yeah, on the transition,
we're gonna walk through it. It's not huge. We have 37 police officers here. We're pretty much within our county. We're a medium-sized agency. So for us, this works perfect. So
fantastic. And on the transition,
was that the only question we had, Max?
Yeah, on the transition, we may have missed part of the answer, but was there an estimate on square footage?
I don't have that diagram here. No, but we can find that out. We have a diagram that was originally drawn up from Patterson and Pope that put the shelving in. I can definitely get that answer if you want to give them my email or I don't know if you want to do that. It's P Crowley, PCROWLEY at Forest Park, is all one word, .org.
Yep.
But I can even send, a picture of the diagram to him if he wants.
Yep, and we'll make sure all of the questions that are answered online or off get answered, and we will post that out for everybody.
Fantastic, thank you.
Excellent. Well, while we're here, let's start and talk about the room we're currently sitting in. Now, this is your larger item storage facility, correct?
It's a processing. We moved everything out of you've seen the before pictures of the property room. We kind of took all that stuff out. This is a room that's adjoining. It can also be locked down as we've had a big case where we had a vehicle in here that we were waiting on a search warrant, doing all our evidence tech stuff, processing, photographing. That's pretty much what's going to happen in here. This can be locked down, and the only access is the 3 property people that we have. So the detectives will come to us and say, hey, we need to get in there and get some details or whatever. We can get it for them. And you can see we do like our fingerprinting and most of our fuming and all kinds of, basically any evidence processing is going to happen in here, but it can also be utilized as a large storage area too, temporarily if we have to.
Excellent. So as we start to head into the property room, there are some things to note. First, security system. We've got different coding to get into the main room.
Yeah, with the accreditation process, we obviously went with this system for now, but the 3 of us each have our own code. So it's the security you all know that you have to have, but it tells each one of us know when somebody's in or out. Everything's under camera. This full room's under camera as well as every area in the property room itself. So.
Also the door in here has a key code combination. The 3 property officers have our own combination. So I've got one separate from Phil. So, and we're the only ones that have that. Same with the other door inside that goes to the drug, money, and gun room. It's got a separate code as well. So we're the only 3 with access to that.
So that's before we take the first step in. So really you have a main general property area, a separate room for where the intake is happening, but then sequestered in its own side room, you've got your drugs, your guns, your money separated with an additional set of locks and authentication needed to be able to get into that portion.
Correct.
Okay, so let's head on in.
Okay. And this is, as you said, this is going to be part of our general property room. And this is something that we did ourselves when we were going to construction. We knew once the systems were in, we said we want to put all our sexual assault evidence is going here. All our homicide evidence will go in one place because obviously those 2 you have to keep forever. And we had general property on some of the other areas and stuff awaiting destruction. So it's been, everything's customizable, with the software, and that's how we did it.
Awesome. So again, you've got everything from your yellow envelopes here, kind of your small and medium sized envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
these are the only 2 envelopes. We talked about them before, but all we told our officers, and I know you guys have dealt with this before, just if it fits, it goes in here. And then anything else is going to be bagged, obviously whatever they can do. But we do have, and you'll see in the gun room, we do utilize gun boxes, but everything else, drugs, money, jewelry, whatever it is, if it fits in here, it goes in here. And you can see we got tons of room there.
And it's got the barcode location area. So when you're actually moving property in, you are actually scanning
Correct.
barcode item as well as location to perform all of your transactions.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, so the biggest difference between what we had last time and what we have now, one of the biggest differences is that we take that piece of property from the pass-through, scan where it's going.
With the mobile app.
And then
using my cell phone.
The system then it recognizes it instantaneously. The system knows exactly where that piece of property is. So even if you make a mistake, if Phil makes a mistake and puts it here rather than where we would typically put it over there, as long as he scans it, which he's going to, the system knows where it is. You can find it as quickly as you need it.
These are all electronics, like cell phones and video, like DVDs, any recovered video. If I put that accidentally in another area where bullet casings or anything else are, we can say, oh, okay, this isn't supposed to be here. We know where it's at. We just move it. So we'll come physically move it, change it in the system.
Perfect. What about Wi-Fi and connection? Again, I see security cameras up here. This is also retrofit, so it's got Wi-Fi, full access.
This whole area is cinder block and brick, so there's not a lot of regular signal. So we did have a Wi-Fi hub put in, and that's all we needed. We have one little guy up there, and it gives us what we need throughout the entire area.
And from a security standpoint, these brick and borders go all the way up through the ceiling. So there isn't any risk of external access. Nobody's getting in the ceiling, moving the floor back or the ceiling panels back to be able to access. These walls go all the way up.
Correct.
to prevent any unauthorized access.
Yep.
Perfect.
And just real quick, I know somebody asked about the square footage. This is that old room, but if you just go down the aisle here, you'll see how this roller system, I mean, you can look in here. We still have a lot of space we haven't even utilized. That's the picture you looked at with all that stuff crammed on them little shelves is now in here. You can see we got tons of empty. We got lots of room still left. And
So this is obviously utilizing the space savers, which
Correct,
is a
yeah.
great investment from
Yep.
every agency I've ever talked to. But yeah, looking through to this room, you can see you still have a lot of room to grow.
we got top shelves. We still have, and we did all this where we wanted. We could actually move this to different areas if we needed to utilize. We could go simply in the safe system and say, we want to move shelf 25 over here and just change everything over and then physically come here and move.
Fantastic. So yeah, it looks like now your capacity, especially with all these empty shelves, you have that room to grow. Your walkways are clear. You don't have boxes on top of boxes.
Yep.
So from a safety standpoint, as well as a general inventory management standpoint, much simpler for you to do your typical processing.
Yes.
From that before. I also see you have cold storage as well in here.
Yes.
So is this just biological? Do you have sexual assault kit, or is
It's all biological. Our sexual assault kits are back on this wall
This
here, and
wall.
those typically don't need to be
The
refrigerated.
stuff
Right.
that has to be refrigerated.
just the stuff?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let's walk a little bit in to see where the temporary lockers feed through.
This is actually just still part of our main property room. We do have some different, these are just stationary shelving, found property, safekeeping, backpacks, stuff like that. We take people to jail and they won't take their backpack. That comes here, found property. Same way the officer will tag it and check it in. This is big item storage, stuff that doesn't fit in those envelopes necessarily. But then, so when I log on, I can see on my main screen that there's going to be maybe say there's 3 items or there's 1 item in here. This is the opposite side of the intake that you've seen from the processing area that the officers use. I just come in here. In this instance, there's 1 item here. So I'm going to go ahead and I just unlock it. This would be the cold storage. If there was anything in there that I would have already known that prior to this because of the, I was looking at my main screen, cell phones, whatever. So I've got everything out. I unlock it. Simply secure this back up. Now for me, I could come back on a Monday morning if I'm off on the weekend and there could be 10 items in there. I use this cart. I'll put everything here. I know from being here that I've set it up to where drug paraphernalia is all in one place, fired casings, backpacks, whatever. So I'll put them in groups. And like this instance, this is like a small bottle of alcohol. And like I said, if it fits, it goes in there. Drugs, we put plastic first and then inside of here because of the fentanyl stuff. If you guys were worried about that, but whatever packaging works, I just simply pull up the app and it logs me in. I use my phone. If that's something that's, if you don't want to use your own phone, I know some officers like it. We do have an iPad that's dedicated to this, but it's the same mobile app, so it would be my preference. And all I do is just set my camera. I could have, I'm just going to do one for now because that's all I have here. I take the picture, scan it. It's going to show up here. If I had 5 pieces of alcohol here, I'd go ahead and while I got the camera up, all 5 of them here. And let's say, so for me, we keep our open container stuff here until it's either sent to the lab or destroyed for court. Bin 1, 2, and 3 on unit 4. So I can pick whichever one. So if I wanted this bin, I'm just going to go here and put move item. It's that easy. It's already got my name because I'm logged in under my settings. And it's what I did was scan location. I'm going to go to bin 1. This tag we've created ourselves because we customized it. It's going to show it here. I do my signature, which is something if you're releasing to an officer, they can sign it. I'm just doing that. Check mark. And it's going to confirm it and show that it's in this bin 1 right here. So it's saying it's on unit 4, bin 1. So I'm going to put this in here, and then if the officer asks for it for court, I can simply pull it back up under his name, or if I know it's alcohol, I know which shelf it's on, and I can I could even come up and scan this bin and tell you everything that's in there. So
So
the mobile
again-
app works great.
And everything translated onto your chain of custody. You don't have to have, you know, the old school
No.
where we're grabbing this card and setting up our laptop
No.
and we've got the Bluetooth
Right.
scanner that's tethered in. You
And
can just,
and we'll go into the guns and money room, but if we have, like I've come in on the weekend, there's been 3 guns I've recovered. I just sit them on here and I'll wheel this out here. That way I know, and I just scan them and take them in there and put them in the appropriate place that we created ourselves. We customized by putting the labels on.
so I've got to ask, beforehand, you weren't doing much of a disposition process. I would assume inventory was quite the same. But if you had to surmise from the photos, doing an inventory would be difficult, especially by hand.
Right.
How quickly and how often are you guys now using inventory aspects of the software to quickly scan a bin and go through?
You'll have to answer the accreditation part of it. I
With
don't,
Kalia, we've got quarterly ones we do, we've got random ones that we do, and they're very quick, very easy. I can say with our last system before all of this, and I wasn't involved in the property room, but I don't believe an inventory occurred ever, period. So now they occur several times a year. Like now we've got a new property officer coming in because one of our others left. So we're going to have to do a full inventory. So 100% of the property room has to be inventoried. And that'll probably be a matter of, probably get the entire thing done under an hour, I would assume.
you can go in and say, okay, we're going to inventory, we're going to pick 5 items, 1 here, 1 there, whatever. And I can scan this and tell you the items there and physically pull it out and say, okay, here it is, done.
Fantastic. So it's not only helping you stay more organized, it is a huge time save.
And,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and purging stuff is
Yeah.
great.
Fantastic. Well, and again, the 2 biggest things with any evidence software, as well as the property room, we're trying to manage those 2 key commodities,
Right.
time and space. And it looks so far like you're managing both much more effectively.
Yeah.
So let's go, the last room is the separate area for your drugs, guns, and money.
Right.
So again, additional security features, you've got to have your own separate key code to get in.
Yes, I've already done it.
You've already done it, yes.
Got a camera in here as well. And then this area here, so this is our drugs, money, and guns. This whole side here is drugs, and we've got it sectioned off as far as marijuana, heroin, cocaine, on down, different. And then this whole wall is going to be guns. Our money is in the safe down there. You got long guns up top, and everything again is sectioned off. So this section here, these 2 guns down here are newly brought in. They got to go through the NIBIN process. And once they do that, this is all NIBIN stuff. Once they do that, they go to the general storage. And then the far down the road there is guns that are ready for destruction.
And fired casings, you guys will get into this if you do a demo with them, but these casings could be test fired, and they're actually tagged and related to the original property of the gun. So when you scan that gun that there's been test fires that already occurred because they are subbed off of the main property as a tag. And it's very easy to do. You can do that right from your cell phone as well.
So it shows that parent-child
Correct.
relationship
Yeah.
because it would have a
It's
separate.
great for us, yeah.
Perfect. Now you do a little bit something that I found interesting in regards to your drugs and any kind of disposition that you're doing.
Mhm.
So can you explain how you're actually utilizing the system, customizing it to a process that you're comfortable with in terms of going through getting court orders and ultimately working through disposition?
And again, this is my comfort level. I made this system this way because this makes me comfortable in how it flows. So when an officer brings, and in this case, it's going to be drugs, this marijuana, it goes here, which is general storage for the marijuana until it goes to court, goes to the lab, whatever, until the officer gets that task and says, this can be destroyed. Once I get that and says, this can be destroyed, then I physically take it, I scan it away from this bin, and I scan it to this bin down here.
Okay, so right here into this lower bin.
Yeah.
And that's where it says everything in that bin.
I know everything in that bin, and that bin is specifically tagged and marked awaiting court order. So then I can do a search. Now this bin's getting kind of full, so I can do a search by that bin, get all those items listed in there.
Automatically have a list of them.
Yeah, it prints out, I put it with my affidavit, I send it to our attorney downtown, I get a court order.
Because within our system, you simply click the location, it
Yep.
pulls up everything. You select all, get all the paperwork, any kind of reporting you need, and you can
Yes,
just download it directly.
That's
And then
the-
once-
awaiting a court order.
Once I get that court order back, I'll take all of that and I'll move it to this upper bin, which is awaiting destruction. So again, this is how it flows for me. The system didn't come set up this way. We customized it. So, you know, us with our disorders in, you know, we got to do things certain ways. It works out for us in the best fashion.
And so, you know, this is all ready to be destroyed. You're just waiting till you have the time.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
again, the system on your dashboard will tell you, hey, I've got 50 items, I've got 80 items awaiting destruction.
Yes.
But the way you have it set up here, you don't know, well, is 80 a lot? For a bigger agency, maybe it's not.
Right.
For a smaller, that might be tons and tons.
Right.
But you can come and look at this bin and say, oh yeah, our 50 items are very much full in this bin. We need to get this process moving. Because again, that continual wanting to dispose of as much as you can immediately when it's eligible.
Yes.
And we just take the court order and scan it into safe and then stick it in here and this goes for destruction.
Yeah.
We're ready
So
to burn it.
once we do, like you said, once anything gets destroyed per a court order, we scan that court order in and like a mass update scan for all those items. Because it's all the same court order. It's all the same M number for us.
It links
Right.
into the
And
court order.
so then if you ever needed to go back into the system later on, even though it's marked in red, meaning that it's been destroyed, it'll have that attachment to it. So you'll find out exactly why it was destroyed, when it was destroyed, and what court order.
So
it
a
has.
year from now, chief comes in and he's hassling you. Why was this destroyed? Without any hesitation, you click into the case, you find that information. Here you go. We're ready to go.
Absolutely.
So fantastic. Max, do we have any other questions before we exit the property room?
Yeah, so there was one on the way in. It was, how well does the vehicle bay work in conjunction with your evidence?
So the vehicle bay is actually, we've marked that as a separate storage unit. So just like over here, this bin 2, I've got the lab / garage as a storage unit. So as soon as I bring a car in to be processed, I actually have a sticker on one of the walls. I scan it because the car gets logged in as well. It gets a property tag. I scan it. So now it's in the system as being in the lab / garage. Once we're done processing it and it goes to, say, our impound lot, that too has a separate tag to it. I scan it and just mark it in the system as being in our impound lot. If it goes anywhere else that's not controlled by us, if it goes to a tow yard or something like that, well, then it's disposed of. And I mark it was disposed on this date. You know, Ingle Towing,
Or released
is where
to
it
the
was.
owner, right.
or if it's released to the owner.
And that-
Fantastic.
For your crime scene guys, if they're hanging, like, if you have a homicide or something, you're hanging bloody clothes or you're drying clothes out, we do that in our lab as well. We lock that lab down and that evidence, we actually enter it prior to it being hung. So we have the property tag and we know it's in that lab storage area. So everything's, as far as accountability goes, you've got it from the time it comes in until you package it and put
So
it on its
The
storage
chain of
location.
custody report will show
Everything.
that it was logged in to the lab garage. Then it was moved from there, packaged. I'm talking about bloody clothing. Once it's dried, now it's packaged and is put on a shelf in here. Chain of custody has it every step of the way.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, so this was the grand tour. Let's go and do a quick wrap up. I think we have about 10 minutes left. If more questions are being generated, and I just have a couple of final thoughts, I guess.
Okay.
We just continue from yours. Okay. So you've gone through this process of both revamping your evidence room and coming into software. So a lot of agencies are getting prepped to do this activity. What would you say, having gone through it now, you've had some growing pains, you've had some hiccups certainly along the way. You know, it's always a learning process. What would you say your biggest lessons learned was for a facility move, going into software, as well as what would you have done differently in retrospect if you had to go through this process all over again?
I think the one of the best things we did was travel around, like Phil said earlier. We traveled around, went to other departments to find out how they were doing it, what worked for them, what didn't work for them that they wanted to do different. That's where we came up with the envelope process. We had went to an agency that was using the SAFE system. And by far, we learned a lot from them, and we utilized some of what they came up with. So there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. A lot of people are doing it. A lot of people have been doing this for years and years. I was new to property when I took this over. Phil was new to the restructuring of property when we took it over. So it's put yourself out there, actually go visit places and see what they're doing that works for them. What would I do differently? I really don't know that we would do anything differently. It worked out pretty well.
And I'll tell you guys, our patrol officers a lot of times were saying, "Oh man, we got to do." You know how they can get sometimes. This has been an easy transformation. I mean, they're logging their property in that quick and that easy. They all have their own password, their own login. We can have several or 2 officers at a time logged into the system. That depends on your agency size and how much license you need. But it's been great, and they're just bringing their stuff in here and creating their case and submitting it. Technically, you could use the mobile app. They could do it right from their mobile app from their cruisers. We don't do that here based on the size of our agency, but that's something else that's possible. It's very user friendly, and the format of it's easy to learn.
Yeah.
We didn't have any problems transitioning from the old pen and paper system to this. It was been a blessing, and I consider myself an old guy when it comes to computer technology. These young kids are whipping right through this.
Yeah, and honestly, that is refreshing to hear, because a system that's cumbersome and that's difficult to use won't be used. It'll be pushed back on hard. And so again, as much as technology can help us automate and simplify processes and give us better controls from a management level, you also have to understand from the base user level, it's simple and easy for them to learn and active.
Also, on top of that is this is a very user-friendly system. I'm used to RMS systems, which are not flexible at all. We have molded this to work the way we want it to work. And there are things where I don't know how to do it in the system, so I'll email, is it Ben?
Our customer support team.
I'll email and I'll get one back, and they're like, that's a great idea. Or this is how you do it. We've got customized forms in there with our logo on it and property release and things like that they don't hesitate to say, no, we can do that. Let's put that in. And so that's been great.
So would you say the user friendliness and the customability of the system is the part of the software that surprised you the most?
The mobile system.
Okay.
Being able to use an iPad or something that you're, like I said, if the officers are comfortable with it, they can use their own cell phone. It's that easy.
Fantastic.
Even releasing property or moving property, we get guys saying, I need this for court. I said, okay, so I'll come in here and get it. I'll bring it out to them. They'll sign my phone, and it's a done deal. And that makes them, they're like, oh, this is out to me now, so I'm bringing it back. And we don't have people keeping stuff for a while and in their lockers or whatever.
Well, that's fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
Having the accountability measures and the new room, I personally think it looks fantastic. We get to view a lot of property rooms, and I'm sure there's somebody online that is inspired by your guys' story and being able to say, wow, I can go from what seems like this monumental task, that if you break it down into steps, if you go through the process right, in not a very long period of time, you can completely change things. And I think for the better, and that's what we've seen here.
And if your chief's worried about liability in the property, I know how property people are, and I didn't necessarily volunteer for this at first. It's easy. I don't worry about liability or anything at this point. It's that easy.
Fantastic. All right, well, that's all I had. Let's check back in with Max one last time. Do we have any final questions, or can we call it a day?
Yeah, there actually was one last question. So the question is, did you set up any type of air filtration system in the drug area?
It's a good question.
There's actually a vent system that comes through, and we had our building maintenance, our property inspector did that. Yeah,
That's the
there
problem.
is a filtration system that was already there. I don't know when that was set up, but it is there, and it filters to the outside. When they added this piece of the building on years ago, that was one of the things they did with the property room. So yes, we do. You're still going to get the odor and everything else, but as far as humidity and all that, we've been fine. So
You've got the temperature
Yeah.
control.
Right.
Yeah, thankfully that we didn't have to add that into our
Yeah.
remodel.
that is something that would cost you, I guess, unless your own maintenance or building department can do it.
You just hang it in.
Excellent.
Of course. Fantastic. Well, I've got to say thank you very much for opening up your property room to us, to our audience. Definitely think there's some valuable takeaways. Again, if you have any questions, we can give out their contact information if you would like to ask them questions directly. Again, join that community forum. That is where, again, the value adds for these type of activities, because now people might have something else that they want to ask or to learn about doing. And you have content experts who have recently done those activities on the forum that are more than willing to help you guys out. So again, this has been Tracker Products hosting from the Forest Park PD. If we've got nothing else, have a great day, everyone, and join us again next time.